Quiet.
Mr. President-elect,
Go ahead.
can you state
She's asking a
categorically,
question. Don't
Mr.
be
President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You are
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can
No,
you
I'm
give
not
us a
going to give you a
question?
question. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir.
I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to Dave versus the MSM. I'd like to thank you for joining me today and thank you for networking this information. We are available 24/7 at davejanda.com with extra videos, extra shows, extra content, extra analysis, extra guests, archives to all of our shows. Many people say, how can we support this platform so it can continue? Operation Freedom Platform. It's very simple. One, networking the information. But for us to get the information in your hands, because we have to jump through a lot of hoops through our IT team, manipulating our videos so that they can get by those wonderful AI censorship platforms, that takes dinero. And one way you can support us is by becoming a premium service content subscriber at davejanda.com. It's $9 a month for priceless content. The amount of content we get our 3-hour radio show, commercial free, every week, and 4 to 5 new broadcast shows for our subscribers. Biggest bang for the buck. It's not just quantity, it's quality. There is nobody else on the internet that has 35 years background and experience with the contacts I have built up behind the curtain for 35 years. And they utilize my platform to get the word out to folks, much of which I cannot discuss on social media platforms or on the radio because of the censorship choke points. We're doing a special presentation with Adriana Reed from the Camino Company, interactive with the audience, questions, answers about financial weapons of mass destruction and how to prepare yourself and protect yourself on Saturday, April 6th at 10 a.m. through Zoom. And we're sending out notifications to our subscribers at davejanda.com. The premium service content subscribers, and also Camino Company, the CaminoCompany.com. Camino, a precious metals company, is sending out an announcement and an invite to their folks that have supported their company. So I encourage you to join and to come to that event. It's going to be significant with, I believe, very actionable information for you to utilize. I want to start with a quote from Gary Barnett, a political commentator, because today's presentation is about the cult's undermining of their opposition, of which not the alternative media, the independent media, is a huge part of the opposition that has made significant inroads against the cult and their freedom-stripping agenda. Gary Barnett, concerning the state, there are no accidents, no coincidences, and no national emergencies or threats. All is planned. Once again, everything in politics and government is planned in advance, is not accidental, any coincidence, natural or organic, as all is staged in one way or another to either affect a certain outcome or cover up another. Believe nothing in the mainstream media or by government. Trust nothing, question everything, and never accept any reports unless you can verify the real facts in order to find the truth. As I.F. Stone once said, quote, all governments are run by liars and nothing they say is to be believed, end quote. One of the things government and their minions in the bought-off lamestream fake media and their various tentacles, whether it's big medicine, big insurance, big media, big Hollywood, big tech. One thing they do is when somebody's hot on the trail of their operation, they label and brand them a conspiracy theorist. Now, hoping that I can't go near that because that's conspiracy theory, and you'll immediately dismiss not just the source, but the information they provide. I can tell you For 30 some years that I have been bringing information, initially to my family, to my friends, then to media platforms, and then to when we established the radio show almost 14 years ago in DaveJanda.com, all along people would say, well, that's conspiracy theory, Dave. Well, it might be conspiracy on a particular issue, but it was conspiracy reality. Because the information I bring on my platform and have always brought to everybody, whether it's an individual or on a mass platform, it's based on truth, facts, data, science, and my sources that have the receipts, the documentation. I want to read to you an email I recently got. Dear Doc, thank you so much for what you do. I remember you taking time when you came to the hospital and checked on your patients. You would also talk to us, the staff, about what was really going on in the world, in our country, behind the curtain. This was back in the early 1990s, and I've never forgotten you. I'm retired now, but love to listen to your lessons and have enjoyed Operation Freedom since. Just wanted to express my thanks to you and know you are being prayed for, and you were and still are one of the very best. I actually forwarded that email to some folks, and here's the cover note I wrote with that. Well, the email below from this morning beats the usual email I receive in the morning that I am a, quote, conspiracy theorist, end quote, or from one of the many people who like to threaten and direct those threats at me for bringing forward the truth and information people need to know, but do not want to hear. It might take 30 years in some cases for people to realize it, but the truth always wins out. A physician at the University of Michigan once said to my daughter, quote, "Your dad has always been a step ahead of everyone else," end quote. That might seem like a compliment, but coming from the doc who said this to my daughter, I actually saw it as a bit of a insult. I'm not a step ahead, but miles ahead of the pack. And I owe that to the sources I've developed over the past 35 years. Which is why it takes so long for so many being so far ahead to the realization that what I speak about is based on solid facts, data, science, and impeccable sources and friends who have been behind the curtain working and holding the globalist scum's feet to the fire, and in the process pushing a freedom and empowerment agenda for every American and person of the world. We recently had a radio show with a number of individuals who have been holding the scum's feet to the fire over many years' time. And what became very evident is that now that we're in an election year, the attacks on all of us have escalated. Michael Ingmeyer, one of the guests on my show recently, was the uncle of Sean Smith, who was one of the 4 left to die in Benghazi by Obama and Biden and Hillary Clinton. Mike took that horrible event in his family's history and wanted to do something to help others. And he became a political activist and writer. For years, Mike has written for a fantastic website, politichicks.com. Well, the attacks are meant to drive all of us away from providing information. Social media platforms. I'm kicked off of Twitter to this day for saying, is the freedom-stripping virus that adversely affected the 2020 election. Haven't been restored yet. That was in January of 2021 that happened. Over 3 years later, still I am not allowed on that platform. Our content on YouTube, our content on Rumble, our content on Facebook is suppressed, hidden. Why? Because all those entities are focused on covering up truth, facts, data, and when needed, the science. They also rely on trying to starve you out, making sure that you don't get monetized. If you do, it's minimized to the max, to the point of, with the escalating costs, you can no longer cover the costs yourself. Well, that site, Politichicks, that Mike Inmeyer has written for, is going to be no longer. We also had Sarah Westall, who has a great independent media platform, has for years. Her platform has come under attack. We have come continuously under attack, whether it's the IRS targeting me for my stance and exposure of Obamacare, or whether it's the intelligence agencies that before the 2020 election decided that they needed to silence my platform and try to do everything in their power to get people so they didn't come to Operation Freedom or DaveJanda.com. We exposed in 2017, but it wasn't until before the election when one of their former CIA low-level operatives decided to take us on. You see, we exposed, through General McInerney and Admiral Ace Lyons, we brought for the first time to radio the exposure of the CIA in a domestic operation, taking an operation, a platform, a surveillance platform called the Hammer, and monitoring terrorists around the world, taking that platform, Obama, Biden, Brennan, Clapper, Susan Rice, Comey, Mueller, Clinton, utilizing and turning it on political opponents, but not just political opponents domestically, but at companies, at thousands of people that were seen as, well, they're not supporting the globalist agenda. Let's monitor what they're doing. We exposed that. And it was the CIA and their former, remember, no such thing as former with the agency. It's like no such thing as former in the mafia. Once in, always in. Once CIA, always CIA. Remember that. They needed to get my voice diminished and our platform censored because we're exposing their operation. That could have adversely affected their operation for the election, and they needed to make sure that my voice was suppressed as they rolled out their this and this. And those few independent media, not so independent, that picked up and pushed this agency narrative, they became complicit in the suppression. And Sarah outlined, now there is another attack ongoing in the independent media where some independent media are attacking other, not based on the issue, like our issue was technology in 2019 that they were attacking. No, they loop trying to bring people into it and, if you will, try to diminish the role of other. And whenever you see somebody in the independent media, you can have constructive criticism, there's no problem with that. But when it's a hatchet job, that should set off alarm bells in your head. Is this platform really so independent media? And I got another email. They do amazing things, the cult, to try to block your information from coming out. We have an email service that they have not been able to penetrate on our end. So what they've done is, through email providers, they've tried to block our emails from getting in inboxes. This is from a subscriber. Thanks, David, for all you do. I, like others, have been cut off from your notices or posts videos for a couple months now. I used to get email notices. No more. Subscriber for years. Also glad to hear you're considering good old Donald J. Trump, and I have faith that in spite of how it looks with our logical minds, there is more there, and I know good God wins. I hope I'm right. I do too. My point is this. When I did a search on this, it turns out that Yahoo, AOL, and Gmail have had a concerted effort of blocking our content from getting in people's mailboxes. Interesting, isn't it? Somebody left a comment on one of our recent YouTubes. Again, this is all about undermining opposition, undermining information to getting to people. Because if they can keep people misinformed, disinformed, and completely uninformed by blocking independent media sources, well, you become an easier target. Other freedom-stripping, life-stripping agenda. Your channel's being throttled heavy by this platform right here. I suggest other resources like Twitter. Sorry, can't go there. Or Rumble. Not the panacea you would think. I have notifications set for all your videos, but I haven't gotten any for years. Right. You see, if they can keep you from getting information, then they can also take information and propagandize you earlier. A good example is what recently occurred with President Trump. He was in Ohio, campaigning, giving a speech. And he spoke about, in the automotive industry, that if Biden, it's not going to be Biden, Newsom or whoever is filling that slot for the globalists, wins in November 2024, the automotive industry will be decimated. And in fact, the automotive industry, because of Chinese imports, because of Chinese parts, the automotive industry will turn into a bloodbath. Well, next thing you know, the bought-off lamestream fake media is saying that Donald Trump said, well, if he doesn't win, it's going to be a B-bath. Well, about 95% of people outside that window in the People's Republic of Ann Arbor didn't even research it, just automatically believed it. Fallout continues over Trump B-bath media hoax. From Paul Joseph Watson. The fallout's continuing over the media hoax, yet another one, claiming that Trump warned of a bloodbath if he didn't win the election, when in reality he was speaking in economic terms. Yeah. But understand, that's not the first. They're acting like it's the first time that term's been used. In fact, some folks had looked into this and said, well, look, we can go back to, I don't know, every year, almost every month of every year, and you can find a globalist using that term, and it was fine. They went back to November 11, 2014. Newly unearthed post from Politico, no less, not exactly a conservative bastion, right? Shows they encouraged Democrats to enact a bloodbath in the Capitol after losing elections. Pretty sure this means they have to be shut down for our democracy or something. The exact quote, November 11, 2014, Democrats got pummeled last week at the ballot box. Next up, their bloodbath in the Capitol. That's from Politico. So they can say it, but none of us can, and they're going to manipulate the story so that it's negative toward anyone that's seen as opposition to them. And let's talk about this opposition. For the most part, other than the Joint Chiefs of Staff and those immediately underneath the Joint Chiefs, the military is seen by the globalists as a point of opposition to them. Which is why they're trying to bring in illegals. There's legislation pending. Illegals into the military. What? Yeah. And their indoctrination, they realized, has to start as early as possible. So we get this. West Point has removed the words duty, honor, and country from its mission statement, replacing them with the more generic words Army values. So when they're not censoring, when they're not suppressing, when they're not manipulating algorithms in order to undermine the opposition, well then, or utilizing government agencies or their hench people, their wolves in sheep's clothing, to attack those bringing truth, facts, data, and science when needed to you. When all else fails, you get this. Boeing whistleblower found dead from self-inflicted wound days after testifying against the airplane company. From Christina Lally, a Boeing whistleblower was found dead from a self-inflicted wound inside his car outside a hotel in Charleston, South Carolina, days after testifying against the airplane company. John Barnett was found dead. He worked for Boeing for 32 years until he retired in 2017, became a whistleblower. Days before his death, he had given a devastating deposition against his former employer. You know, we were having all these, doors falling off, wheels falling off, panels falling off of these planes. Quote, Barnett's death came during a break in depositions in a whistleblower retaliation suit where he alleged under pressure workers were deliberately fitting substandard parts to aircraft on the assembly line, end quote. Now we get this before his suicide. By the way, law enforcement had put a report out that when he was found from this suicide, the gun was still in his hand. Now, as an orthopedic surgeon who was on the front line of healthcare delivery for 32 years, orthopedic surgeons deal with folks that have had trauma. Throughout our training, in my particular case, I had a tremendous amount of trauma-related training. For months, some of my training was at Cook County Hospital on the south side of Chicago, Knife and Gun Club. Cook County Hospital trauma unit was run by John Barrett, who is one of the most outstanding physicians I had ever worked with, a trauma surgeon. He had it set up like a MASH unit in Korea, a MUST unit in Vietnam. We had multiple operating tables in the same room. And on a Friday and Saturday night, we'd have all three operating tables right next to each other going on with simultaneous cases because our workflow, unfortunately, was high because of all the gunshot wounds, injuries, and stabbings. Over the years, I have taken care of too many people that try to commit suicide. I can tell you of the many dozens of folks that I took care of, tried to save their life, if not was involved in saving their life. Not one of them that tried to kill themselves with the use of a handgun, not one of them, it's called recoil, had the gun still in their hand. That fact alone should raise warning signs. But then we have this from Paul Joseph Watson, a Boeing whistleblower. Quote, if anything happens to me, it's not suicide, end quote. The Boeing whistleblower who supposedly killed himself reportedly told a close family friend not to believe it if he was announced that he had committed suicide. 62-year-old John Barnett died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound in South Carolina. According to his attorneys, quote, Barnett had, quote, exposed very serious safety problems with Boeing 787 Dreamliner and was retaliated against and subjected to a hostile work environment and was in the middle of a legal deposition against Boeing. Quote, he was in very good spirits and really looking forward to putting this phase of his life behind him and moving on. We did not see any indication he would take his own life. No one can believe it, quote, said his attorneys. Yeah. Well, and a friend stepped up and said, John said to me before the depositions, look, if something happens to me and they claim it was suicide, it wasn't. And that is what these people are opposition. They're truly evil, satanic, in fact. That's the level they'll go to undermine opposition, to make sure you are misinformed, disinformed, completely uninformed. So they can implement their chaos-like, fear-packed agenda, which ultimately leads to the removal of your remaining freedoms and liberties, which adversely affects your life and your future in our constitutional republic, and frankly, the freedom of the world's population. One of the big problems, I believe, in the freedom movement is a lack of realization of how evil the globalist cult is, and to what level they'll go to, overtly and covertly, to stymie opposition. So what do? Well, I think we have to hold a magnifying glass on everybody, on all sides of the equation. If you find somebody in the independent media who's pointing the finger at other people in the independent media movement, then ask yourself, what's going on here? Constructive criticism is really important. But when you see people getting vicious and trying to tear others down without receipts, just based on, well, I'm concerned, be very careful about those platforms. That's number one. Number two, don't underestimate our adversary. They are capable of anything and everything. Number three, the white hats in this world that will bring about freedom and liberty are us. A politician is not going to ride in to save the day. Somebody in the military is not going to ride in and save the day. This stuff about trusting the plan the plan's fine, but show me the plan. I'm not stupid. People have been telling you that for 4 or 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, but have yet to produce the plan. Could it be that there is no plan? The plan is to keep you on the couch so that you're not talking to your neighbors, talking to your family, networking information, going to your local school board and township board or city board and saying, what are you doing? What are you doing about this illegal situation? What are you doing about this fentanyl issue? What are you doing about the homeless situation? What are you doing about whatever you want to, right? No, it's about peacefully protesting, but actually beyond protesting, taking action to let these people know you know what's going on, and they better start addressing it, because if they don't, you're going to find somebody to run against them and primary them out. And you're going to expose them for their lack of doing what needs to be done when it comes to the freedom and liberty side of the equation. See, the way we win this war, and it is a war, is by not sitting on the couch and not trusting a plan we've never seen that no one seems to want to produce. The good news is there are white hats. It's all of us that value freedom and liberty, that value truth, facts, data, and when needed, depending on the issue, science. And exposing those who are actually doing us harm. Sometimes it's very easy. You know who's on the globalist side. But it's the wolves in sheep's clothing that are a problem, so-called controlled opposition. And that's where your discernment comes in. And as I said, constructive criticism is great and important so that we grow. But when that criticism becomes vicious and trying to tear people apart without the appropriate documentation of what's going on, then that platform and those people automatically become suspect in my mind. Maybe not yours, but mine. And the reason is because of my experiences throughout my life. Having opposition is part of life. You can actually get better because of opposition. You don't have to suppress it. You don't have to undermine it. But you can learn from it if it's justified. But our opposition on the other side of this, the globalist cult, our opposition, there's nothing good there. And they will use every means possible to undermine those of us bringing you facts, data, truth, and when needed on the particular issue, the science. They will do anything and everything to undermine your freedom, your liberty, your future, and your life. And it's up to each and every one of us to expose who's doing this and why, and to hold accountable those that aren't getting the job done on the freedom side of the equation. I thank you for joining me today. We are available 24/7 at davejanda.com. You can stream the radio show free live every Sunday from 2 to 5 Eastern. Just hit the listen live button at davejanda.com on Sundays from 2 to 5. The podcasts, commercial free, are part of our subscription platform in addition to the 4 or 5 other shows a week that we provide. I hope you become part of our freedom family. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for your time today.